The foundation. We built our life, brick by careful brick, on what I believed was unshakable ground. Sarah wasn't just my wife, she was my counterpoint. I was the architect, meticulously drawing the blueprints for our future, finding solace in the solidity of a plan. She was the force of nature that would landscape the grounds, planting wild, beautiful flowers where I had only penciled in neat, predictable hedges. We met in a college philosophy class of all places, her arguing passionately for the poetry of existentialism, me countering with the rigid logic of stoicism. We fell in love over the clash of ideologies, finding a perfect, thrilling harmony in our differences. For 15 years, that harmony was our symphony. We built careers. My steady engineering firm, her vibrant freelance graphic design work that allowed her to be present for the kids. We built a home, a place filled with the chaotic, beautiful noise of a family lived in. But most importantly, we built a family. Liam, with my serious eyes and her mischievous grin, now 10. Emma, a miniature Sarah with a fierce, independent spirit, now 8. They were the living, breathing heart of our union. Our marriage was happy not because it was perfect, but because we were a team, a unit. Every decision from what movie to watch on a Friday night to the nerve-wracking choice to refinance the mortgage for a better rate was a discussion. A "what do you think?" whispered in the dark before sleep. A shared glance across a room that said, "We're in this together." I truly believed that foundation wasn't just rock. It was reinforced concrete, sunk deep into bedrock. I failed to see the fault line running directly through her family. Sarah's sister Chloe and her husband Mark were the perpetual victims of their own spectacularly bad luck, which was, upon any objective inspection, just a fancy term for a relentless series of poor decisions. They lived in a world of get-rich-quick schemes that inevitably went poor slow, of maxed-out credit cards and leased luxury cars they couldn't afford. Their narrative was one of constant unjust hardship, and their inability to have children was the crown jewel of their tragedy, trotted out at every family gathering like a shield to deflect any semblance of accountability. Their sadness was real, I never doubted that. The emptiness they felt was a void I could empathize with. But their proposed solution, became the wrecking ball that swung directly into the center of our lives. The proposition and the betrayal. It was a Sunday dinner at her parents' house. The air was thick with the cloying scent of Evelyn's potpourri and slow-roasted chicken, undercut by the sharper aroma of unspoken judgment. Chloe's eyes, perpetually red-rimmed lately, were fixed on her plate. "The last IVF round failed," she whispered, her voice a thin, reedy thing. She pushed a piece of asparagus around her plate as if it held the answer. We're out of money, out of options." Sarah's hand immediately shot across the table, covering Chloe's. "Oh, honey, no. I'm so sorry." Her voice was thick with shared pain. The connection between them, that primal sisterly bond, hummed visibly in the space between them. Their mother, Evelyn, let out a sigh so heavy with performative grief it could have been staged. "It's just so unfair. After everything you've been through. Chloe, you would be such a wonderful mother. You deserve this." The words weren't just comfort, they were a verdict, an assignment of a right that the universe had unfairly denied. I kept my head down, focusing on the precise act of cutting my chicken. I knew this tune. I had learned to play a silent accompaniment to it for years. Then Mark leaned forward, his eyes bypassing me entirely and locking onto my wife. "The doctor said a surrogate would be our best bet now. The only bet, really." He let the sentence hang there. A fishing line cast into a still pond, waiting for a specific fish to bite. But it's so expensive, and finding someone you can trust, it's nearly impossible. The silence that followed was deafening. It was the silence of a vacuum, pulling all the air, all the reason out of the room. I looked at Sarah. I saw the dawning horror in her eyes, the comprehension of what was being asked. No, what was being expected. And then I saw it. The flicker that would become the inferno. A tragic, misguided sense of purpose. The look of a hero presented with a dragon to slay, blind to the village she would burn down in the process. No. The word left my lips before I could even form the thought fully. It was quiet, flat, and absolute. A stone dropped into the pond, shattering the tense silence. All eyes turned to me, wide with surprise and immediate disapproval. "James," Sarah began, a warning in her tone. "No," I repeated, firmer, placing my fork down with a deliberate click that sounded unnaturally loud. "We are not having this conversation." Evelyn's lips pursed into a tight, bloodless line. "James, really, this is a family matter. It's about helping family." I met her gaze, my own gone cold. "My wife's body is not a family matter, Evelyn. It is not a community resource. It is our matter, mine and hers. And the answer is no." The ride home was a 20-minute journey through a frozen tundra. Sarah stared out the passenger window, her arms crossed, her posture a rigid monument to wounded indignation. That night in our bedroom, the thaw was violent and devastating. "How could you?" she seethed, whirling on me the second the door closed, her voice a low, dangerous tremor. "How could you be so incredibly heartless? She's my sister. This is her only chance at a family." Heartless? The word was a spark to the tinder of my own fear and anger. "Sarah, for God's sake, think. Really think about what you're even considering. You're talking about carrying a child for 9 months. The physical toll, the morning sickness, the back pain, the potential for gestational diabetes, for pre-eclampsia, the hormonal roller coaster that makes you a stranger to yourself. For them, for people who can't even balance a checkbook. What happens if there are complications that leave you with permanent damage? What happens to your job? What happens to Liam and Emma while their mother is sick or on bed rest? What happens to us?" "I will be fine," she yelled, her composure shattering. "It's my body, James, my choice." The phrase hit me like a physical blow to the chest. It was a mantra she'd absorbed from the world, a shield she now wielded to deflect not just my concerns, but my very partnership. "It is our life," I pleaded, my voice cracking with a raw, desperate emotion that shamed me. "Your body does not exist in a vacuum. This choice, this massive choice, affects Liam, Emma, me, our finances, our future security. You are standing there telling me you are willing to risk all of that. For what? For the gratitude of people who will forget this sacrifice the second it becomes inconvenient? For family!" she screamed, tears of fury now streaming down her face. "Something you clearly know nothing about! You're selfish! You're controlling! You just don't want me to do something beautiful because you can't control it!" The fight didn't end that night. It seeped into the walls of our home, poisoning everything. It was the cold coffee left in the pot every morning because we couldn't bear to share the space required to brew a fresh one. It was the silent dinners where the only sound was the scraping of cutlery on plates. It was the vast, icy continent of sheets between us in our own bed. I tried, God, I tried. I printed out articles on the psychological impact of surrogacy on the carrier's own family. I spreadsheets outlining the potential financial cost, highlighting our shared expenses and the projected loss of her income. I begged her on my knees one night to just go to a single session of counseling with me. She refused. She accused me of trying to manipulate her with numbers and fear. She said I didn't trust her, and in that moment she was right. I didn't trust her judgment. I didn't trust the stranger who had taken over my wife's body. The worst part was the clandestine activity. The whispered phone calls from the bathroom, the sudden lunch with mom that lasted 4 hours. I saw the edge of a medical form peeking out from her purse one day, tucked beneath her wallet like a dirty secret. She thought I didn't notice. Each glimpse was a paper cut to my soul. The end of the discussion came on a Tuesday. She stood in the kitchen, silhouetted by the harsh morning light, her chin held high. There was a defiant, hard glint in her eyes that was entirely foreign to me. "I've started the hormonal treatments," she said, her voice unnervingly calm. It wasn't a discussion, it was a pronouncement. "I'm doing this for Chloe. The implantation is scheduled for next month. I need you to support me." I felt the world lurch, the floor tilting violently beneath my feet. The reinforced concrete of our life didn't just crack, it vaporized. I looked at the woman I had loved for half my life, the mother of my children, and I saw a zealot, a stranger blinded by a cause that excluded me and our children. She had made a unilateral decision that would alter the course of all our lives. She had taken a blowtorch to the tether connecting us and severed it without a second thought. The anger, the pleading, the fear, it all drained out of me, leaving behind a cold, vast emptiness. I didn't argue. What was the point? The debate was over. She had voted. and I had not been granted a ballot. "I see," I said, my voice so calm it sounded like it belonged to someone else. "You have made your choice. I hope for your sake, and for the sake of our children, that it's worth it." I walked out of the kitchen, out of the house, and got into my car. I drove for an hour, seeing nothing. Then I pulled over, took out my phone, and called a divorce lawyer. The first of many calls that would include a private investigator and a financial advisor. If she was making unilateral decisions, so was I. Mine would be about survival. The pregnancy was hard from the start. The synthetic hormones turned my vibrant, passionate wife into a raw nerve of emotion, sickness, and exhaustion. She expected me to be there, to play the part of the devoted husband, to rub her feet that were swelling for a child that wasn't mine, to hold her hair back as she vomited from a pregnancy I had begged her not to undertake, to attend doctor's appointments and listen to the heartbeat of a baby that was the embodiment of my betrayal. I was civil. I was not cruel. I ensured Liam and Emma were fed, clothed, and got to school on time. I made dinners, simple, nutritious meals she often pushed away. I did the laundry, folding her maternity clothes with a numb, robotic efficiency. But I was a roommate, a live-in caretaker. The intimacy was dead, a light switched off. The love was buried under a mountain of resentment, pain, and a profound sense of abandonment that sat like a stone in my gut. She began to glimpse the edges of her mistake around the 5th month. The initial euphoria of being the heroic sister, the saintly savior, wore off, sanded away by the relentless grind of reality. The back pain was constant. Her ankles swelled. She was isolated, too sick to go out, too emotional to maintain her friendships. Chloe's calls became less frequent, shifting from daily check-ins to weekly calls that lasted only as long as it took to get an update for her social media posts about their miracle journey. The offers of practical help, meals, errands, just sitting with her, were non-existent. One evening, I found her crying on the couch, a mountain of pillows failing to make her comfortable. She looked small and lost inside her own body. "Chloe was supposed to come over today," she whispered, her voice thick with tears. "She canceled, said she and Mark were just too exhausted from their weekend trip to the lake." I continued reading my book, turning a page. "That's a shame." The words were neutral, empty. I had no comfort left to give. My reserves had been spent during the arguments she had dismissed. She looked at me then, and for a fleeting second I saw the woman I knew, scared, regretful, and truly seeing me. "James, I'm sorry, I didn't know it would be this hard." I met her gaze, my own a flat, emotionless mirror. "I did," I said softly, the truth a simple, devastating weapon. "I told you. You didn't listen." The final trimester was a special kind of nightmare. The first medical bills arrived, stark white envelopes amongst the junk mail, each one a fresh indictment. Then the complications started. Spotting. High blood pressure. She was put on strict bed rest. Her freelance clients, tired of her unreliability, faded away. She lost her income entirely. Suddenly, the full, unromantic weight of her choice landed on her with the force of a physical blow, and by extension, on me, because we were still sharing a roof and, legally, finances. Her family's support revealed its true hollow form, a series of guilt-tripping phone calls directed at me. Evelyn called me at work, her voice a syrupy blend of concern and accusation. "James, she's really struggling. You need to step up. Be a man. This is your wife, for heaven's sake. She needs you." "My wife," I replied, my voice even and cold as polished steel, "made a monumental decision without me. She explicitly informed me that it was her body, and therefore her choice. I'm applying that same logic now. Her body, her choice, her struggle, her responsibility." There was a sputtering on the other end. "How can you be so cold? We're family. Family helps family." "Interesting," I said, a sharp, sarcastic bite finally entering my tone. "I don't see you over here cleaning our house, doing our grocery shopping, or writing checks to the obstetrician. Your support seems to extend only as far as your ability to guilt-trip me into cleaning up a mess you helped create. It seems your family motto is, 'My daughter, your problem.' Well, here's mine, your choice, your responsibility." I hung up, the click of the phone a period at the end of a sentence I should have written long ago. The climax came 2 weeks after the baby was born, a healthy, squalling boy. Chloe and Mark were at the hospital, all smiles and tears and balloons, taking 1,000 pictures. They held the baby, cooed over him, and posted the news to a fanfare of online congratulations. They stayed for an hour. They never asked how Sarah was recovering from the emergency C-section. They never offered to help when we got home. Their gratitude was a superficial thing, a shiny veneer that cracked the moment it was required to be practical. We came home. Sarah was a wreck, physically shattered from the surgery, emotionally hollowed out, hormonally crashed into a deep, terrifying canyon. The reality that she had carried and delivered a child she would never hold again, never mother, was a psychic wound that finally broke her spirit. And the bills kept coming. A deluge of paper, tens of thousands of dollars. Our joint savings account, the one I had meticulously built for a rainy day, began to evaporate. The college fund I had so carefully curated for Liam and Emma was now being eyed by her and her family as the life raft for her sinking ship. She came to me in my home office, her face pale and drawn, clutching a thick stack of envelopes like a condemned woman. She moved slowly, wincing with every step. "James," she began, her voice trembling, we need to talk about these medical bills. My portion, after what my insurance covered, it's a lot." She placed the stack on my desk. The number on the top statement made my blood run cold. "I can't cover it. I lost my job. I need your financial support to pay for my part of our shared expenses." I leaned back in my chair, steepling my fingers, looking at her. The sheer, breathtaking absurdity of the moment threatened to overwhelm me. "Let me get this straight," I said, my voice dangerously quiet, each word a chip of ice. "You unilaterally decided to undertake a massive, invasive, and expensive medical procedure, a procedure I begged you not to do, outlining every single one of these consequences. You dismissed my concerns, my partnership, and my role in this family. You told me my opinion was irrelevant. You used a mantra of empowerment to justify an act of profound betrayal. You nuked our marriage, our family's stability, and our children's financial future for your sister, who has now, predictably, abandoned you the second the hard part began. And now you stand there, in the ruins of the life you chose to destroy, and you have the audacity to ask for my financial support?" I paused, letting the weight of it crush down on her. "Do you even hear yourself?" She broke then, great heaving sobs that racked her sore body. "What was I supposed to do?" she wailed, a child's plea. "I can't do this alone." "Yes," I said, standing up, my own heart a frozen, barren block of ice in my chest. "You can, and you will, because you chose to do it alone. You made a decision without me. You will now suffer the consequences of that decision without me." I picked up a simple manila folder from my desk. It had been there for months, a constant grim reminder. "I've had these for a while. I was waiting for the right time. I suppose there is no good time. This is it." Her hands trembled violently as she took the folder. She opened it. Divorce papers. My terms were clear, precise, and mercilessly fair based on the new circumstances she had created. The PI's report detailed her family's pressure campaigns and her sister's vanishing act. My financial advisor had already legally separated our assets as much as possible. The house, a relic from my life before her, was solely in my name. I was offering a clean financial break, spousal support based on her current unemployed status, a fair division of what was left of our marital assets. It was enough for her to land, but not enough to save her. It was not my job to save her anymore. You're leaving," she whispered, the words a choked gasp. Her world, the one she had chosen to build without me, was finally irrevocably collapsing in on itself. "You left months ago, Sarah," I said, the truth feeling like a release. "You just forgot to tell your body. I'm simply making my own unilateral decision. You severed us. I'm just recovering my resources and protecting what's left of my sanity and my children's future. We are not an us any longer. You made sure of that."
The fallout was nuclear. Her family descended like harpies, their calls and messages a torrent of vitriol. I was a monster, a deadbeat, a failure of a man who abandoned his wife in her hour of need. They conveniently forgot it was her need, born of her choice, one they had championed. I had one final conversation with Evelyn. She screamed down the phone, "You have to help her! You took a vow, for better or for worse!" I took a vow to a partner, Evelyn, I corrected her, my voice flat and cold, devoid of all emotion. Not to a solo actor who makes life-altering decisions behind my back and then expects me to fund the fallout. You encourage this. You fed her this fantasy. This disaster is your masterpiece, so you help her. Put your money where your mouth has been for the last year. Write a check. Show me what family helps family really looks like. There was a long, dead silence on the other end of the line, then a barely audible, flustered whisper. We can't afford that. You know our situation. Exactly, I said, and ended the call. The hypocrisy was so absolute it was almost poetic. The hardest part was the kids. I sat them down with a child therapist I'd already engaged, and we explained in the gentlest terms possible that Mommy and Daddy loved them very much. But Mommy had made a very big decision about her body that Daddy couldn't agree with, and it meant we couldn't live together anymore. I was meticulously careful never to badmouth her. I simply stated the age-appropriate facts. Children are terrifyingly perceptive. They'd seen the strain. They'd seen their mother pregnant, sick, and miserable for a baby that was then given away. They'd felt her absence emotionally long before she was gone physically. They'd witnessed their aunt's vanishing act. When asked where they wanted to live, they chose me. The look on Sarah's face when they told her was something I will never forget. A pain so profound it was like watching a soul break. It was the natural, devastating consequence of her actions. She had been so focused on building a family for her sister, she'd failed to notice she was dismantling her own. I moved us into a new, smaller house. I built a new routine, a new life. It was quiet, it was stable, it was predictable. There were no whispered phone calls, no medical bills, no tense dinners. We built Lego sets, we did science experiments on the weekends, we ordered pizza and watched movies. The silence was no longer cold, it was peaceful. I heard through the grapevine, a mutual friend who pitied her, that Sarah was drowning. The debt was overwhelming. She had to move back in with her parents. Chloe and Mark, blissful in their new parenthood, sent a fruit basket to her parents' house a month after she moved in. A fruit basket. That was the sum total of their gratitude for the child she had given them. The road to hell, indeed, is paved with good intentions. The final, clarifying moment came about a year later. I was at the park with Liam and Emma, pushing them on the swings. I saw her before she saw me. She was sitting on a bench alone, looking smaller, older, faded. She saw us, and her breath hitched. She looked at Liam and Emma, their faces flushed with laughter and joy as they flew into the air, screaming with delight. There was a profound, bottomless sadness in her eyes, a yearning so deep it was like a physical ache. She approached tentatively. "They look really happy," she said, her voice soft and raspy. "They are," I replied, my tone neutral. "We are." She choked on the word, tears welling in her eyes. "I made a terrible, terrible mistake, James, the worst of my life." I looked at her and I felt it. Not anger, not bitterness, just a distant, profound pity, the kind you feel for a ghost trapped replaying its own tragic end. "Yes," I said softly, "you did." "Do you think," she swallowed hard, forcing the words out, "do you think you'll ever be able to forgive me?" I considered it. The question wasn't about absolution, it was about my own peace. "I don't know," I answered honestly. "Forgiveness isn't for you, it's for me, and I'm not there yet, maybe I never will be. But I don't hate you, Sarah, I don't know you anymore. The woman I knew would never have done what you did." She nodded, the tears streaming down her face uncontested. She had gotten exactly what she'd asked for, her body, her choice, and now she had to live with the echoing, lonely consequences of that choice, alone. As I walked away, a small hand in each of mine, I understood the cold, hard final truth. Sometimes the strongest thing a real man can do is not to futilely fight for a ship that's already on the ocean floor, but to calmly and decisively get the lifeboats ready for the innocent, and let the one who chose to drill the holes face the deep, cold, crushing pressure of the abyss all by themselves.